Y Juan Camilo Pérez Hernández, magíster en Neuropsicología y Educación de la Fundación Universitaria Internacional de La Rioja, UNIR. Tiene una especialización en Educación Superior a Distancia y una licenciatura en Inglés como lengua extranjera de la UNAD, además de ser ingeniero químico de la Universidad de Antioquia. Ha sido docente y director de tesis en temas de motivación, inclusión y autonomía en el aprendizaje del inglés. Y el día de hoy van a dar la conferencia titulada Learning through unsupervised machine learning. So now the microphone is yours.
Okay, thank you very much to all the participants, the audience, and thank you to the University Veracruzana for letting us show and present our results of this topic. Let me share the screen. Am I sharing the screen? Give me one sec. Silvia, do you want to share the screen? Okay, go ahead. Silvia, are you presenting right now? Are you sharing?
Sharing the screen. You can go ahead. Can you see
Okay,
it?
you cannot start the screen share while the other participant is sharing. Yet it said someone else is sharing the screen. Is it yours?
You want me to stop sharing? You want to go ahead?
No, go ahead. I know, I'm going to start. Okay,
Uh,
sorry. Okay, so first, okay, this is the title where we're going to present the project called Rethinking Pedagogical Mediation in English Learning through Unsupervised Machine Learning. And this is like a quantitative approach. We're going to like see how machine learning can help us like draw these conclusions about one specific group. And it's not about just a topic for systems engineers or people who know about programming. Now with different AI tools, of course, validating these processes with Python readers such as the Jupyter Notebook, we can have a clear understanding on how we can interpret the type of students we have at a blended learning course or a virtual course. So we're going to start just the first two authors are going to participate since today we have some time constraints. Let's move on, please, Silvia, to the second slide. Okay, so here the focus today, Sylvia, is your, I know this is mine. Okay, so no, the introduction, what is the first one? Okay, that's one. The introduction, okay? So today we know that it's important to recognize the diverse learning needs that our students have. And basically we're talking about auto learners, students who have different backgrounds and different learning styles and learning strategies. And the idea is to have a profiling of all of these students using machine learning. And what is machine learning? Unsupervised machine learning is like not feeding the machine the information about the students. We're not going to profile the students from the beginning, but we're going to let the process to identify different nuances in the students that we have so that we can have like clear differentiation of their study habits. And we can even include, if we want 30 variables, 40 variables, it would be impossible to do it manually. I mean, if you have 637 students at once in a in a spreadsheet or an Excel spreadsheet, it's impossible to start one by one, even filtering with advanced filters to recognize what type of students we have there. Imagine like processing like 30 variables or 40 variables at once. So with machine learning, it's possible to do it. Okay, we're going to use the k-means clustering groups. I'm going to explain in the methodology what this means. Okay, continue please with the next one, Sylvia. Okay, Okay, in the objectives, we're going to identify using unsupervised machine learning distinct types of oral English learners at a platform that Sylvia is going to explain later how it works. And the K-means clustering, the process of analyzing what type of students we have, like separating them in 4 or 5 or 6 different groups to identify their needs, their learning strategies, so that we can have like a clear idea of what students we have, what type of profiles we have, and how we can intervene there, how we can personalize the learning process. So we're going to analyze the behavioral and engagement, and we're going to analyze different variables according to their access to the platform and the work in different settings of the platform. And at the end, we're going to suggest pedagogical strategies to increase motivation and engagement. Okay, go ahead, please.
So in the
Okay.
theoretical framework, we're going to focus a little bit on pedagogical mediation, motivation in adult learning, because we're completely focused on adults, young adults and adults from 18 and on, and learning analytics and personalization because of the key benefits that it brings us. If you focus on the key benefits of these 3 frameworks, we have the anatomy and reflection, personalized experience, and adaptive instructions. So specifically, we're focusing on adults, but also at the very beginning, they are beginners studying English as a foreign language. So according to that framework, let me go ahead and show you a couple of pictures. I would like for you to identify why are we performing this study and why are we investigating about this specifically. But look at this. Check the difference between these 2 pictures. What you can see, what you can identify, and it is one of the key elements that we show the students, the adults, once they start learning English with the platform ABA English. So we want to help them focus on the difference between traditional learning and autonomous learning. They are completely different approaches, and it is very difficult for an adult to fit into virtual learning in some cases. But if it is difficult to fit in a virtual environment, it is even more difficult to do it for a new language, for a different language. So for them, it's kind of complicated, and it's been like a little rock, a little it's complicated for people to learn English like this. Anyways, this is what is motivating us to do to perform this study. Confenalco and ABA English have a little, it's a contract between the 2 companies, and the motto of ABA English is to learn English with movies and live classes. It's a special methodology, and it's based on immersion. So it's a 6-level course, and the students can generate the certificates. This is they have unlimited conversation classes, and they are assigned a teacher from the very beginning when they start the course. In Confenalco, we generate reports constantly. So we show what is the advance in accessing the platform. In these 2 images, you can see how the students increase the access of the platform alone. So back in 2023, only 53% were accessing the platform. And back in 2024, in March 2024, at least 91% of the students would access for real the platform. In these other 2 graphics, you can see that the students were just completing 2 units of 144 units. Look at this. It's a full complete course with 144 units to achieve all the 6 levels in the Common European Framework of Reference. But look at that. Only 36% of the students were accessing and completing 2 units. that was very low because it's not even 20% of one of the levels. So back in March 2025, at least 70% of the students were completing minimum 2 units, which is not a good number either. So at the end of, at the beginning of March 2025, only look at this number, from 4,500 students in the platform, accessing the platform, studying English with ABA, only 28% of the students, that's 1,263, right? That's 28% of all of the students at that point. Only in that case, of the 28%, 53% of that complete a percentage achieve the level A1, right? It's very little number for us because we really want all of the students to use the platform as much as possible. Only 25% of that 28% of all of the students achieve the level A2, and so on. B1, 11%, 5% for B2, 4% for B2C1, which is one of the levels in ABA, and C1 business only 2%. So in a big number of 4,500 students with access to this platform, it was a very little number for us. So we're trying to motivate them to use a lot of the strategies and to help them engage into virtual environments, of course, but also helping them set a goal. They need to identify that if they are in the beginning level, A1, they can for sure accomplish the level B1. So they will go from A1, A2, and B1 in a full year of access to the platform. We're trying to motivate them, and we're trying to use as many strategies as possible, but it's still something that we need to work on. That's why we're performing this study. So for the students in A1 level, we give them a goal. You can set your goal and you can visualize yourself into accomplishing the minimum three levels during the whole year of access to the platform. So we do this step-by-step process. We ask them actually to take the level test. They have to take a level test so they can start from that point and practicing in the platform. We give them, of course, a training session at the very beginning. We show them the platform, how to use it. We explore the platform with them. We give them tips, and then they will be able to access. In a training session, we develop, instructions on how to take the level test, the welcome email they will receive, the platform exploration, dedication and engagement, where we give them the tips actually to study and practice, and the certificates, how they can use the certificates, because in Colombia, we can use course certificates for special purposes, maybe to inform how to, or how I'm doing the process of learning English. I'm achieving the level A1, A2, B1, B2, etc., right? But there are other purposes for using the certificates in other cases. But we give them all of this information from the very beginning so they understand how to use it and how to achieve the levels they need to achieve. So in the dedication, we promote and we recommend the students to at least minimum 2 hours or 4 hours. And if they dedicate 4 hours a week studying in the platform, they will complete at least half of a level. For example, level A1, they will complete minimum half of the level in 3 months. If they dedicate 4 hours a week, they will complete in 6 months one of the levels. In 12 months, they will complete minimum 2 levels, right? If they dedicate 4 hours a week, right? But we try to not to be pushy in this case. but we motivate them a little bit more into using the platform in terms of the units, completing at least 4 units a month so they can keep the access to the platform. The thing is that we start courses every month. So there are new students coming every month, right? So we give them the access, we provide the access, but if the student doesn't use it, I'm sorry, but we need these licenses back. So we cancel the license and we give them to the next following students the next month. So it's one of the things that we have been using as a strategy, and most of the students try actually to complete it, but it's not enough. We need to do a lot more in here. We also give them an ideal calendar and how to follow the process, right? And but there are a lot more things that we can do. That's why we're doing this study. And Juan Camilo is going to show you how the methodology of the K-means clustering is for it. All right, Juan Camilo.
Okay, thank you a lot. So Sylvia told us, I mean, they have a lot of information. I mean, like huge databases, like imagining spreadsheets with 30 columns at once and with 1,000 students per month or 2,000 students in 2 months and different levels, multi-levels, and with different things that we have to take into account. For example, the study time per week, the units completed in 1 month, the participation in the conversation classes. What other elements we have to take into account? I mean, could be, I mean, a lot. We can extract, if we want, we can separate in clusters. I mean, organize in clusters the students, but doing it manually, like with our perception, for example, I mean, from intuition, we could say, okay, we have 3 different types of students. We have high achievers, okay, the average ones, and the low achievers. Simple as that. But what happens if we have more nuances in our sample? I mean, it could be there could be like 5 or 6 different clusters of different students according to all the different combinations that we could have with all of these variables. So that's what we're going to use. We're going to use a method called k-means clustering. And it's like separating with machine learning the group, an amount of students from the beginner level. We're going to choose just one level, the beginner ones, because the ones that are more struggling more to keep on advancing in the courses. So we're going to separate them from the other ones. The intermediate ones, the B1 or B2 levels, are independent learners, so the comparisons are not like suitable in this case. So we're going to explain how we can use it without being experts in programming. For example, I don't write a code. I don't write one line of Python, just to tell the truth. And like showing, can you please move to the next one, please, Sylvia? So showing results taken from ChatGPT or any other AI agent could be a little bit, careless, could be a little bit not that meaningful. But if we can prove everything that we extract, or we can enhance our results in a Python reader, for example, Jupyter Notebook or Google Colab, again, we don't have to learn Python or R or any other coding language, because it's going to take like 10 years or so, or 5 years, I don't know. But with the artificial intelligence, we can have like results that are significant, meaningful, and results that we could use for our purpose today, that is personalizing our different strategies for our learners. So what is the k-means? K-means is a method, as I told you before, is a way in which we can generate like 4-5 different clusters of students according to 7 variables or 8 variables. In this case, we have 7 variables that we took into account. You could take like 30 or 40 variables, and nowadays it's possible. Or if you have 1,000 variables, it's not a problem. Okay, for us it's difficult to measure, to think of 7 multidimensional variables. I mean, it's really difficult, but we can extract from the k-means. We can start with an assumption. Okay, let's suppose that we have 3 different type of students: high achievers, average, and low achievers. So you feed the machine and you tell them, okay, I think that there are 3 different clusters here. I think there are good students, average ones, I mean, good, and low achievers. And k-means starts analyzing the data with the variables that we think that are the most important ones, and it give us like a representation in 2 dimensions. Okay, imagine a graph, having a graph of 7 dimensions. It's impossible to imagine that. But with k-means, you can graph everything in just 2 dimensions or 3 dimensions, but it's like practical, is more practical and easy to understand 2 dimensions, taking the 2 main principal components of analysis. I mean, they combine all these variables and they show us like with colors, okay, no, you don't have 3 clusters. We believe that you have 4 clusters. Okay, one cluster represented in this orange and the second one in this yellow cluster. And you can start like thinking other assumptions like, okay, we don't have 3 types of learners. This is too basic. I mean, it's like too traditional. I mean, old fashioned think that we just have 3 types of students. Could be more, could be 10, could be 15, but we have to be like conscious that having a like 15 different strategies for 15 different type of students is going to be overwhelming and difficult to swallow. So continue please with the next one. So to validate that there were not 4 but 3 or 5 clusters, we have different validation methods. For example, I mean, there is one called the elbow method, where you can graph like a curve, and where you see the like the elbow, where you see the change that was not huge at the beginning but not that huge afterwards. You can see that this is the point, the the best point for you to select the amount of clusters that you have. Okay, it represents like uh, the clusters that could be differentiated one from another. And the silhouette score shows you, I mean, the distinctive clusters that you have, like how well they are different from each other. If you have, for example, we're going to see the results. Please continue with the next one. So we clearly see that in the results that we have 4 type of learners. Okay, there are the low engagement learners, okay, or low achievers, as we used to say in the past, but we can now, or we can say like this, but in this case, we're measuring engagement. We're not measuring motivation. I mean, motivation could be another step that could follow after this analysis. The qualitative approach could be. And we have the steady learners. Okay, they are not that good, but they are constantly working on the platform. Okay, the high achievers, of course, the ones that are constantly there. I mean, with excellent grades. I mean, participating in the debates, in the English conversation clubs, and the inconsistent learners. Okay, one week, I mean, they are there, they are fluctuating all the time. So this was the analysis, and you could say, but I mean, we could have deduced this just with a simple, I mean, view from the beginning. Yes, but this could help us. Okay, I could, with these results, this could give us some parameters to say, okay, from this list, add another column to the Excel and show me which student belongs to which cluster. And this is amazing. I mean, categorizing 1,000 students at once with these results, okay, really meaningful. So you can personalize your strategies. This is one technique used in marketing segmentation, and it could be applied in for us, for teachers, without having to worry about coding a lot. So continue, please, with the next one, Sylvia, and you can continue there. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. According to the study and the results that we just saw, for the 4 different clusters. So we're going to use these recommendations actually within the company I work for, and actually for the platform itself, by English. So for the high achievers, we're planning on providing the advanced materials, look at that, to encourage leadership roles, right, for the high achievers. But remember that these students are only in A1 level, in beginners, right? The ones for the steady progress that are advancing a little bit, right? We're going to use clear goals and consistent feedback to reinforce the habit of practicing constantly in the platform. For the low engagement students, they are not completely engaged into practicing in the platform. We offer additional support, structured plans to increase the accountability and making sure that they can advance a lot more. And for the regular learners, they are kind of the ones that we have to struggle a little bit more, but it's a challenge. It's always a challenge. We're going to help them emphasize flexible options and gentle reminders to build routines. That's what they need. And also getting used to using a platform and working autonomously, learning a language. Now, continue, Juan Camilo, sorry.
Okay, so here we can see that since we are talking about oral learners, we have to look for strategies that are based on andragogy and the ways we can adapt these learners to new technologies, to new ways of thinking and learning. And I think that is the most challenging, fact here. That not only are we struggling with real beginners, but with oral learners with a mindset that is a little bit all outdated. I mean, compared to the ones that we have to the younger learners. Okay, so personalizing the learning in virtual environments is necessary, and we can do it with all of these artificial intelligence tools that we have at our disposal. Okay, we can use data analysis without being experts in data analysis, and we can adapt the curricula not only once, not only one per semester. This could be changing. Constantly. I mean, emerging new strategies day by day, and we could help us with this. Okay, continue please with the next one. Okay, and what is next? Okay, we use the k-means clustering, but there are different approaches on how to analyze this data. This is just one, but we could perform other data analysis techniques using unsupervised machine learning. For example, the DB scan that uses other strategies, not only starting from one supposed amount of clusters, but they make some different calculations and they have different results. And maybe the metrics for this, the second clustering approach could be better, or we could perform the hierarchical or agglomerative clustering much better, because it could be like having different. You can have 3 clusters in one, 4 clusters in one another model, and we could choose which one is better. But for now, since the metrics were good here, we're going to take this one and maybe compare it with another one to see which one fits better for the sample we have and the kind of students we have. Okay, continue, Sylvia, with your strategies.
Yeah, we always tell the students that are coming in every month, the new students, there is a big universal or big universe in ABA English. There are more than 35 million students around the world practicing in this platform. For us in the company that I work for, we have on average 3,000 students every month. There are students that are leaving, there are students that are coming. But based on these studies specifically, we're going to be able to help them using these strategies that we identify in the results of the data analysis, this is actually going to help us a little bit more into how to help them engage and the retention that they need so they can achieve a higher level. In Colombia, that's a complicated situation that we have with learning a new language, right? But we are completely positive that this is going to work. Data analysis does work. I've always been keen on studying a little bit more of analyzing data. But the K-means cluster, it gives you a little bit more details. And now we can get a little bit more strategies to help them. Anyways, for future, we are going to try to integrate real-time analytics for adaptive the feedback in ABA English for all of our students. So it's been really, really helpful. Right? And I think that's it. Thank you so much. Thank you for the invitation and thank you for your time, for your attention and your attendance. We really, really appreciate it. I don't think I introduced myself, right? Silvia Maldonado, bilingualism coordinator in Confenalco, Cartagena. But I've been a teacher for over 16 years. And I have used different kinds of methodologies with different students, even from primary school, secondary, institute. I've been testing different methodologies, and one of the ones that actually I can identify that it works is this one with ABA English, right? So if you ever have a chance, it's a really good option. But the important thing is to analyze the data and to extract as many strategies as possible to help the students and motivate them a little bit. Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, professors, for this insightful talk, especially because it's something that we as language teachers should try to, like that, dare to try. In this case, we are not really used to employ those kind of analytics. And sometimes it's like a common feeling that I'm in the languages, so I'm not really keen on dealing with statistics. But this is not the case. In how you explain us, we can do it. And well, I would like if any of the audience would like to make a comment, a question, so our speakers can solve their doubt.
Any questions?
Well, I just want to say that I'm very happy to have attended your talk. I think you did a very relevant piece of research. We're gonna try to do something similar here in Mexico because we share commonalities with you. We have a platform here, specifically at Universidad Veracruzana, which is called Eminos. We haven't done this, and I think we need to recognize the types of students who are connected, and it's a thorough work. It's time consuming, but I think it's the first step that we need to take in order to personalize teaching and learning, and to take care of instructional design in the platform as well. I think this is innovative for us. I hadn't thought of doing something like that, but now I'm going to have to start working hard. Congratulations on your research, really.
Thank you so much.
And Rene, also you have raised your hand.
Thank you. Sorry, I can't turn on my camera right now. in a moment. The thing is that I want my question is, do you have access? Because I heard that you have like this feedback from the from the platform, but my question is that if in other institutions you have the information to compare the information in order to have a better analysis of the data.
I didn't understand quite your question, but you mean if we have public access for the information?
Yeah, for example, in other institutions that maybe you have another feedback to check not only your progress, but in other institutions.
No, there is no public information open for everyone to access. This is an analysis that we are performing within the company that I work for with ABA English, of course, with their consent, and also with UNAD, Universidad Nacional Abierta y a Distancia. But the information we gather is specifically downloaded from the platform itself. We have access as administrators, and we can actually pull down the reports constantly at any time. Of course, we have to take care of the students' information, personal information, names, emails. We don't use that. So we don't categorize or catalog the students according to the name. No, they are just selected. They were a sample selected of 637 students, if I'm not wrong, specifically the ones that have A1 level only, because the platform will show us all of the students in different levels, right? But these ones specifically are the ones that are in beginning level, beginners, and because they always say, I always wanted to learn English, and but I don't understand much, or I cannot speak. I can read, but I cannot. My pronunciation is bad. So we're trying to focus on those specific students to help them and motivate them a little bit more with different strategies to achieve at least level B1, right? Because in level B1 or B2 is intermediate, you're going to be able to understand if you listen to a TV show, for example, or a movie. If you have a B1 level or a B2 level, you're going to be able to understand not 100%, but at least 65 or 70% of the message, right? And you're going to be able to communicate if you have or if you achieve the level B1. So we're trying to push those students to motivate them into achieving a little higher level, not to be stuck always in level beginner A1 or A2, right? That's our goal. That's what we really want to do.
And sorry, I want to add, if marketing strategists analyze all of this information and categorize and separate the customers, as they say, in different groups and do this segmentation and prepare some marketing strategies, why don't we as teachers we could do the same? I mean, it's a parallel. I mean, it's a strategy that it works perfectly for marketing, so why don't we use it for pedagogical mediation, for strategies, learning strategies? And it's now at our disposal. I mean, we don't have, I mean, as I told you, if you want, we can have like a cooperation. We could collaborate. We could start like having like a network of uh, doing some kind of analysis like this, and of course integrating with more post-positive approaches that could be like integrating the qualitative approach, and afterwards we could like of course we categorize this student in this cluster, but why don't we ask them what motivates them and what keeps them from moving on? Okay, so that's the invitation, if you want. Okay, we're going to have oral information or emails. I mean, if you want to collaborate, that would be great for this purpose. Okay, thank you very much.
I have another question, and that would be that how difficult is for the student to get into these classes. Yeah, they need a computer. It can be on their cell phone. It is at the university.
Student access, you mean to have a platform, right? Aba English? Aba English is open for anyone. You can download the application and you can pay for a subscription. They have 3 month or 6 month or a year subscription. It's a premium access. But in our company, it's I don't know how it works in other countries, but in Colombia, las cajas de compensación, they provide resources and we provide benefits for employees in different companies. The companies are affiliated to Confenalco, so we provide them and we give them the benefit of using different services, including learning a language. So with us, the students don't really have to pay anything, but the companies do. But in our case, we have around 3,000 students on average every month. So that's what we do. But you can access any person, anyone around the world can access and download the application. They have both the platform and the application to access the course.
Okay, thank you very much.
We really appreciate all this information, and for sure, I think that we are going to get in touch with you since it's not only a trend, but it's take advantage from these technological developments that nowadays we are within them and how we as language teachers can use them. So, as a final comment, I would like to emphasize this aspect. Thanks to the K-means clustering approach, we can identify the type of students in terms of achievement. Then, based on that identification, we can also start thinking about how to personalize learning. And in order to personalize learning, we need to use a data analysis approach, which means how, for instance, how many times do my students access the platform? Probably if I say the amount of times the students may have produced good, wrong answers in a specific topic. And based on that, we can start developing the pathways to personalized learning. So, for instance, we can add additional exercises, we can arrange personal tutoring if they ask us for that, or probably we can reinforce the explanation or something like that. And that is also, as a result of that, we can give some pedagogical recommendations. So, in general terms, we are having an holistic approach for not only teaching, but also indirectly to assist the human being for their language learning process. I don't know if I'm on the right track. Am I?
Definitely,
Sure,
that's right.
totally, definitely. The only thing that it's not about achievement but engagement. Okay, so we are in this case is more focused on the engagement of the students rather than the amount of just the achievement of them. Okay, so engagement could be measured by times a week they work on the platform, study time per session, okay, participation in oral sessions, okay, because it's you could differentiate, even you could ask, okay, but we could have like high achievers but that are just focused on grammar on the platform, but there are other high achievers that could be engaged in conversations. So there is a huge difference, ones that are just learning vocabulary but not expressing anything, and ones that are already using the language. So there could be more nuances that we could take into account for this analysis. But yes, in this case, we measure engagement as the main variable here, measuring in 7 different variables.
All right. Thank you so much for this clarification. And we really appreciate your presence here virtually. And just take our word. We are going to get in touch with you.
Okay, I appreciate it. Okay, thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you everybody.
You're welcome.
Help your students. Motivate them. You're doing a
Yes.
good job. You're going to do a great job. All right. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Goodbye. Now, we are going to continue with the following talks. In this case, we are going to start with Víctor Manuel Utrera Lara and María Guadalupe Ángeles Canela. Both of them are language professors and currently they are studying the MEILE program. And they are going to give us a talk related to mastery-based instruction for EFL teaching, a proposal.
So, good morning, everyone. Are you able to hear us?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
Lupita,
very good.
just make a try, please, Lupita. I cannot hear you.
Yes. Good morning, everyone.
Yes. Good
Good
morning.
morning, Professor.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. So we're going to present our proposal for mastery-based instruction. So we are, my name is Victor, Victor Utrera, and my classmate, Maria Guadalupe, both we're going to present this proposal. So here we have in our second slide, we're going to present the proposal. We're gonna give you the context, the reasons why we chose this context. So for us, our context is that for more than 5 years, teachers from secondary school have tried to help the students improve their language skills. The objective is to obtain the first certification of Cambridge, in this case, the level A2, even though the communicative approach has been implemented, and we know that the communicative approach is a very commercial and popular approach. So it has not shown real progress on the students' proficiency of the language because of the lack of personalized work in the classroom. So we have decided that mastery-based teaching in secondary education would fit because many students at this stage face uneven learning progress and also low confidence in their language abilities. So we know that traditional teaching methods almost always move through units quickly and only emphasizing the coverage of content instead of ensuring real understanding. Therefore, some students would actually continue without mastering the essential skills, and that would lead to learning gaps. So that would make later topics more difficult. So we think that the implementation of a mastery-based teaching approach in secondary school in the EFL classes would promote higher levels of motivation and engagement while students experience real progress and sense of achievement after mastering each learning goal, which is very important. And this leads to a more supportive and productive language learning environment.
Okay, now, well, good morning, everyone. I'm gonna try to share the theoretical framework, and the first part is the definition and core idea of what mastery learning is. Well, it's students must demonstrate a high level of competence on a concept or a skill before moving on the next topic. That will help teachers to pay attention on their students' progress and also try not to leave anyone behind. The key principles will be providing clear outcomes to students, using diagnostic assessments and formative testing in that way to know what are my students' needs and how can I start working with them. It is also really valuable for planning and for preparing the suitable activities. Also offering extra support and instruction to students who don't reach the mastery standard. And here I would say that the support that the teacher provides to the student, it's really important because, well, we have like 3 different categories. The first one will be like the cognitive support that will be try to reduce that cognitive load, probably try to find the resources for my student and also try to include quizzes or games or some platforms that can help my student to work with the contents. Also, we have the affective support that will be try to boost motivation in my students and try to have a flexible communication with them. And also the learning strategy approach that will be, or support, sorry, like trying to, as a teacher, trying to become effective at the moment of teaching and try to find also the suitable training to work in the best way with them. The next one will be the benefits for students. Mastery learning promotes autonomy, motivation, and interaction between peers. Students are cognitively engaged by the use of diverse materials addressing their needs. So that will be a personalized attention. And also the role of the teacher in this approach will be as a planner because, well, we have to adjust the instruction to my students' needs. Also a structure and a facilitator of knowledge and also probably resources. Here in this approach, it's really important to have feedback. So as the way I can know if my student is progressing or not will be to have like constantly feedback with them, like be there next to them. And also as a supporter, as I said before, of individual learning pace. That means we will have to respect the way my student learned and also the pace or the time he needs to consolidate content, for example. The application in real context, well, first, the recommendation is try to break down subjects into small units. Also use diagnostic assessments, designing activities that foster teamwork and the use of digital tools, and adapting materials according to the students' needs. Some challenges to consider, well, we have that for mastery learning, sometimes it's complicated to apply it in large class sizes because, as I said before, it's kind of personalized work. Also, if in the place where we work, we have these limited technological tools, will be complicated for us to carry out this approach. And sometimes limited time, demand of rapid results by the parents, and the lack of training for teachers. Some teachers, well, don't know that we have different approaches, or in this case, that we can take advantage of mastery learning to work with students' process of learning and acquiring a new language.
Okay, so in our methodology for the school context, so in mastery-based teaching, the recommended instructional hours per week or the group sizes are actually influenced by various educational frameworks and research studies. So we wanted to clarify that, especially in the Mexican teaching context, we have the public schools and private schools, And we have selected private schools, especially because of the amount of students that we can have in the classroom. In public schools, it would be really hard to apply this approach, because normally in public schools we know that sometimes we may have from 30 to 50 students in one single classroom. So we have decided that in private schools would work better or easier, especially firstly because of the small class size. So the idea is to have between 10 to 15 students maximum. We have decided because it allows the teacher to give personalized feedback. We can monitor progress closely, and we can also provide individualized support when students need extra help. The manageable groups, that is according to the Mississippi Department of Education. The ideal is to, per teacher, the ideal is to have 2 to 4 groups because of the load of work. That would definitely not allow the teacher to have the time to organize and to give feedback personalized for each students. The age that we have selected is students between 12 to 13 years old. So we consider that students at this stage are developing greater cognitive control and motivation. But they still benefit from clear structure and encouragement. So it helps the students as well for confidence and persistence. And we think that in a low English proficiency context would also fit perfectly, because mastery-based teaching is particularly effective for beginners. In this case, because it would allow them to move at their own pace, revisit sometimes material as needed, and also build a strong foundational skills before progressing to more complex contexts. In the next slide, for the real application, so we have, as part of the analysis, so we think that in this master-based teaching context, so firstly, we should have the diagnostic tests and surveys. They are really important for the teachers or for us, because it would help us understand where each student is starting from. So this information would make it easier to plan lessons that fits the students' actual needs and learning styles. And this would also help teachers keep the students motivated, since activities can be designed around their interests and their goals. So we consider that without this first step, it could be hard to make mastery learning work, because we wouldn't know what the students already understand and what they still need to improve. In the syllables, we consider that revising the syllables and selecting language competencies are key steps in master-based teaching. One, because in that way, we make sure that the proposal fits the school's curriculum. We keep the goals clear and realistic, and we can also focus on helping students truly master essential language skill, not just covering the material. The application, we consider that it's essential in this case to define clear learning objectives, organize content into small sequential modules. So that means that we can break content into smaller step-by-step units that makes learning more manageable and logical. In that way, we make sure that the students build a strong foundation before moving to more complex topics. Also, the use of formative assessment tools such as rubrics, observation checklists, and self-assessment forms. In that way, these elements ensure that learning is transparent, structured, and personalized. This would also allow both teachers and students to monitor progress, address, in this case, difficulties early, and guarantee that every learner achieves mastery before advancing. And as my classmate Lupita Guadalupe said, the feedback is very important because this practice would ensure that all the students achieve mastery of the target competencies at their own pace, which is what we are really looking forward to. It supports equity and fosters a growth mindset, and also helps learners consolidate knowledge through meaningful feedback and continuous improvement.
And well, why this approach improves learning? Here we have some research evidence. The first one will be Benjamin Bloom, which says that students taught using mastery learning techniques could perform up to 2 standard deviation higher than those in traditional classrooms. That means that teachers will be giving this corrective instruction. That means that will help a student to identify how is the way they learn, but also to fix some specific learning difficulties that my student have in order to help him to overcome those difficulties and continue with the process. The next one will be Goski. Mastery learning increases students' motivation, retention, and confidence as learning experience repeated success. And the next one, the same author in another study says, mastery learning creates the condition for students to succeed by focusing on time, feedback, and corrective support. And here we have the pedagogical proposal. Some of the benefits, as I mentioned before, of using this mastery learning will be that we have personalized pacing allows students to progress when they truly understand the content. The formative assessment and feedback helps identify learning gaps early. That will ensure that we don't leave anything or any student apart. Corrective instruction ensures no student is left behind, as I said. Confidence, motivation grow as students experience consistent success. And deeper understanding leads to better long-term achievement. And now we have here the potential challenges and the possible solutions. The first one, according to what we have stated and my classmate Victor mentioned, some of the challenges that we can find in the context that we have chosen is the time and classroom constraints. That means that sometimes as teachers, we need to plan the everyday life, like the everyday classes, but sometimes we have some problems that don't depend really from the teacher, and one of them will be the time. So some of the possible solutions will be try to focus on essential goals and use flexible pacing. Another one will be variety of student learning traits. We can have like different learning characteristics, different learning styles, emotional traits. So for this, we can find as a solution the peer tutoring, group feedback, technology-assisted learning platforms to manage differentiation. Also, we have another challenge that will be assessment overload, and we can find a solution with short formative quizzes or mastery checks into daily activities instead of long tests. That means that to have the suitable feedback, and that must be like continuously practice. Teacher training needs. well, as I mentioned before, sometimes we don't have the suitable training, or how, as a teacher, how can I implement this approach? So the possible solution will be to find the professional development, to find the suitable training, and sometimes also try to collaborate with other colleagues, where I can find probably some pieces of advice in order to improve my teaching performance. And as my classmate Victor mentioned, the group that we have selected is teenagers. So sometimes teenagers are like complicated, because they are like trying to show this resistance to the language. And well, the possible solution will be, well, try to find a clear communication with the students about the purpose. Sometimes just they want to know what are they going to learn and what for, like what's the purpose of learning this, and also the benefits of learning in this way. So try to celebrate the short or the small achievements that they can have every day, in order to progress and try to boost this motivation in them. And as a conclusion, we have that mastery-based teaching provides an effective and equitable framework. This approach ensures that every student achieve a clear level of competence, before advancing. So by allowing this, my learners to do this, we will achieve a clear level of competence. And also we will have to respect the progress at their own rhythm, receive continuous feedback, and engage in corrective activities. Also, this approach promotes deeper comprehension, confidence, and long-term retention. In EFL classrooms, mastery-based instruction is particularly valuable because language learning requires consistent practice, reflection, and gradual skill development. Also, this approach empowers both teachers and students to focus on individual progress rather than comparison or deadlines. And lastly, implementing mastery-based teaching fosters a more inclusive, motivating, and supportive environment where success is defined by persistence and true understanding rather than time constraints. And well, that's all for us. Thank you very much. We will be really happy to listen to your questions.
Well done, Victor and Lupita, for this orderly presentation on mastery-based teaching. First of all, I would like to listen if any of your classmates or Dr. Cliserio or any other member of the audience would like to share a comment or a question. Meanwhile, what I would like to emphasize is mastery-based instruction promotes higher levels of motivation and foster teamwork, which at some point is also aligned with the affective filter hypothesis of Krashen. This means that mastery-based instruction also allows students to learn in a non-stressful environment, which also may lead to engagement in the learning process. Probably that point of engagement in the learning process could be also important to include within the outcomes of using mastery-based instruction. Just take into consideration that. Apart from that, engagement will also lead to assist a variety of students learning traits, something that you mentioned. And I'm really sure that at secondary schools is precisely the day-to-day living of a teacher. Why? Because sometimes you have the high achiever students, but in the sense they are committed to learn. because they enjoy language and also they feel they are making progress. And the other students who are reluctant, so they are not really engaged with their learning process. Probably another hypothesis, obviously it's out of the context in which you are discussing, but probably we may state that mastery-based instruction should be a teaching approach that may conscious on lower achievers for starting to be engaged in the learning process. So this is a different hypothesis, just like a comment I would like to think about. So the statement that you did was precisely, and I agree, totally agree with you. Something that I also consider important is the fact that mastery-based instruction is not only to give final tests or midterm exams. No, in fact, you can give students like a concise activity just in the form of a quiz, probably like a Kahoot activity, and then apart from enjoying, they are going to be conscious that, well, but I see that. Yes, so now you are conscious that you need to review the content. And if you are not reviewing the content, that's why you didn't get the points on the Kahoot, for instance. So this is another advantage of using mastery-based instruction. I don't know, before I give another comment, if someone else would like to share something with your classmates. Nope. All right. So finally, I think that this proposal could be also be done in real. What I mean, it's like, I don't know, probably Victor or Lupita, you can try to implement just in one unit of your syllabus. And then, according to what you have written now, let's try it and have a systematic record of how effective was, which tools, which teaching strategies did you implement were aligned with the mastery-based instruction approach. So this is like the second stage you could do it. The first stage is this theoretical reflection, this theoretical proposal, and the second stage could be now the real implementation.
Thank you, Professor.
No, you're welcome. Well done. And
Thank you very much for the comments, Professor.
You're welcome. So now, if there are no more comments, we will go with René Horacio Romero Castillo, Ilse Naomi Jaime Tanamachi, and Manuel Alejandro Villar Ruiz. They are going to talk about story time in action, story-based communicative activities for EFL young learners. So now the microphone is yours. I'm not really sure, but I cannot hear anyone of.
Well,
Yes, I
I'm
can
at
hear you.
school, so if could you please, Rene, just share the presentation? It's because I'm with the school internet, so and sometimes it's not working like
Yes, don't
properly.
worry. I'm gonna do it.
That would be nice. Thank you.
Give me a
Don't
moment.
worry.
Just 10 seconds. Wait for me. There. Okay, sure. Here. Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. Very good.
There you go. Okay, thank you
There it
a lot,
is.
Rene.
Okay. Now
Well,
don't worry.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Professor, for the invitation. As Professor already mentioned, we are going to be talking, well, the approach that we are going to be focusing on is communicative language learning approach. So, and the proposal that we have got is story time in action, a story-based communicative activity for EFL young learners. It means using the story time as a way to learn. Okay, so these are the members of the team. Could you please go on the next slide? Thank you. We will be, those are the topics that we are going to be talking about. So let's start with the introduction. Okay, first of all, we have the introduction, and which is the teaching background. Well, we were thinking about applying this approach on whether public or private schools. Most of us know that nowadays, well, not everywhere, but in different places, we still keep using the traditional methods that are they just only focus on memorization and grammar, which is the way that it's been teaching like during years. And well, that's why we decided to implement this approach as innovation or a different way in which learners can achieve this goal of English. So it's important to mention that students often lack opportunities for authentic communication in English. That's why we think that it's a great idea to use real text or real, in this case, stories for them to have this authentic material. As most of us, we only focus on the textbooks that we are given. We also follow the program. And well, sometimes we don't think about giving our students something real for them to make it more meaningful and obviously more realistic. The reason for the proposal, as I mentioned, it's basically because, well, they show low speaking confidence and limited vocabulary use. This is why we decided to do this. And also, this limited vocabulary is, as I mentioned before, because we only focus on the vocabulary that the textbooks are given. And sometimes we only work with that and we don't give them like extra vocabulary. CLT is mentioned in the curriculum, but not effectively implemented. Sorry. Like in most curriculums, we have to follow specific aspects to follow the structure of the book if we are using one. And well, it's mentioned like in most of the curriculums, but it is not like implemented as it should be. And what is storytelling motivates children and provides meaningful contextualized input. That's what I said before, like try to make them more meaningful for them to learn. Well, the thesis statement, the integration of story-based communicative activities will enhance oral interaction, listening comprehension, and motivation among young EFL learners. It's not only learning English, but also developing these activities, well, these skills, which are related to learning the language. With this indication, in this case, would be oral interaction, listening, and motivation. So my classmate Naomi will continue with this explanation.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ali. And good morning, everyone. We are very glad to be here with you today to talk about this approach that changed the way we understand language learning, which is the communicative language teaching, or CLT, and how storytelling can serve as a powerful tool to apply this approach in classroom. So this will be our theoretical framework. The communicative language teaching approach emerged in 1970s as a response to traditional grammar-based methods, while older methods focus on accuracy, repetition, and memorization. The CLT shift the focus to communication, that is learning a language by using it to express meaning. So in a CLT classroom, students are not passive recipients of grammar rules. Instead, they are active communicators. The main goal is not perfection, but interaction. And we use language to solve problems, to share opinions, and to connect with others. Also, well, the teacher's role changes from being the center of knowledge to becoming a facilitator who creates those opportunities to authentic communication. Can we pass to the next slide, please? Thank you. Well, some key principles of CLT are that language is learned through communication, not by studying it in isolation, and meaning precedes form. So students use language to express ideas first, and grammar comes as a support. And we prioritize the ability to use this language effectively in real life situations. So interactions is essential. Pair and group work encourage this negotiation of meaning. And of course, well, we see errors as part of learning because they are the natural evidence of progress. So to us, CLT focus on developing communicative competence, knowing how to use language appropriately in different contexts. Some of the advantage of CLTs are that improves real-life communication skills, increases learning motivation, encourages active learning, develop all language skills simultaneously, and promotes cultural awareness. Now, some disadvantages could be that challenging for beginners, which is why we choose this specific group to try to work with in this approach. Requires skilled teachers. Assessment can be difficult, so storytelling is we're going to get a proposal of how to assess with this tool. It could be a little bit time consuming, which is a huge issue for us teachers when we have to complete a program, right? But this could be a great tool to work with our students. And well, obviously we limit focus on explicit grammar, which with beginners is not so hard because as I say, the grammar is not it's more a support, but not the base of language, right? Can we pass to the next one, please? Thank you. Now, how does storytelling connect with this approach? Well, storytelling is one of the oldest forms of human communication. So it engages emotions, imagination, memory, and all these are essential elements for language learning. So in a CLT framework, the storytelling works beautifully because it allows students to use language for real purpose, to narrate, to describe, to persuade, and to express their feelings. So students listen a short story, then retell it in their own words, focusing on the meaning rather than the accuracy. Some things that we can work with in this with this tool that is the storytelling are the groups can change the ending of a story or tell it from another character's perspective, and it promotes collaboration and creativity. Also, learners can share real-life experiences connected with a topic, which fosters authenticity and emotional engagement, right? So the study states that the storytelling method can help to develop the language in young learners, especially because by telling stories, they are able to develop these language skills. But also, according to Yolanda and Mohit, is effective to improving children's social emotional abilities. So that's why it promotes collaboration, but also they can foster this emotional engagement, right? So through these activities, the storytelling activities, students naturally can practice vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, but in a meaningful, contextualized, and enjoyable way, right? So the interaction of storytelling in CLT offers multiple benefits. It provides authentic input in context, making structures easier to remember. Also, it promotes cultural awareness as the stories often reflect social values or traditions, and it increases motivation and confidence since learners participate in creative and low pressure communication, right? And well, obviously, it encourages collaboration as students build stories together or negotiate the meaning. So storytelling transform the class into a space of genuine communication and emotional connection. Exactly what CLT seeks to achieve. So communicative language teaching reminds us that language is not only a system of rules, but a living tool for interaction. And storytelling brings that principle to life, allowing students to communicate, to imagine, to express how they are through language. So when we teach through stories, we don't just teach words. We teach students how to connect, how to think, and how to belong to a wider world of voices in different cultures. Now, right now, my classmate Rene will talk you more about what is or pedagogical method for this approach. Thank you so much. Thank you, Rene.
Thank you very much. Okay, so now we are going to be a little bit our context. Now I'm in charge of this part. Well, we three are teachers in public or private schools here in Mexico. And normally we have an average size of students in a classroom from 20 to 30 students per classroom, which is a very challenging aspect of teaching in nowadays English class, because we have to deal with a different type of students who have different abilities, different learning styles. However, how we can manage they improve their English proficiency. Okay, normally how many in our proposal it will be like in the idealized word, we could have 3, 4, 5, 6 classes per week. For me, at least, I have one class per week, and my classmates have one, 2 or 3 classes. Yeah, they have a little bit more time that some professors. However, this tool can be implemented in all of them. Okay, so normally storytelling won't be on all classes. Normally, it will be for those students that have a little more knowledge about they have more knowledge about the language. However, it doesn't mean that we can do that with younger students. Yeah, maybe with not so much knowledge about English. Okay, the implementation steps. Okay, number one here. Well, here we have some our proposal. It doesn't mean that it has to be this way, but it could be a nice way to do it. Okay, here first we need an analysis through a classroom observation and our student surveys. Sometimes during the classes we can check how our students are related to certain topics or what is their level of English. Okay, selection of age appropriate stories. Here it could be also about their interest. Sometimes if they are interested in what we are going to talk about, what we are going to create, they are more willing to do it. Okay, design of community tasks based on each story is very explanatory. Integration of storytelling sequence, pre, while, and post story stages. Well, this is like the key process, at least in the implementation of in the real class. Why? Because they don't truly know how to do it, so we have go step by step, helping them. And finally, the application of set rubrics to measure all interaction and comprehension. Okay, and this has to be adapted to the level of proficiency of the students and also the materials that we want to work. Okay, so the lesson sequence: pre-story, vocabulary, and prediction task. Normally, we need a class. Probably it will take the whole class only to present the vocabulary or the main topic that we want to talk about. Sometimes we can even ask our students what are the story they want to tell us. Here an important aspect is their own creativity and their own interests, because in that way it's going to be easier for them and for us. Well, story, listening sequence, and comprehension games. You can have some interactive games that can help you to go to that place. Post-story, retelling, role play, and story creation. Here is the part when they can present the story, they can change the ending, they can do something different that they will like. Here are some proposals that we have. For example, picture sequence are retelling in pairs. Yeah, they work in duos, telling a story, creating role play with short dialogues. Sometimes if they are very beginners that they don't really know much English, well, maybe they can only try to create a story that is already created, create a new ending group project. This is something very interesting because maybe you have a story like they like the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Well, now we are going to change the ending of the story so it can be a little bit different. What would you like to do that enrich and will be different? And the story coming is straight a presentation. Okay. So, what are the outcomes? What are the objectives, the goals that we want in storytelling in the CLT approach? Well, that our students have more participation in English, that they improve their listening and speaking skills, and they are more motivated in the classroom. Here, the implementation, here we have two examples. The first one is mine, that I did it in kind of two classes, but in many stages. The first one is that we were going to have a Day of the Dead festival, but I asked the principal of the school that if I could have a Halloween activity inside that festival, and he agreed to that. So on the first stage, on the first class, I asked my students to have some Halloween activities. I presented the vocabulary and also told them a short story about Halloween and Day of the Dead, so they were aware of the vocabulary and some simple sentences, so they can work on that part. Okay. In my context, it's a public school in Mexico. The average size was 20 to 30 students, and I arranged the students in groups of 3 or 4. I needed 2 classes, but I did it very simple because I didn't want to take much of the English time, and the students' age, it was to 7 to 12 years old. Normally they were the groups of from 3rd grade to 6th grade. How was implementation? As I told you, what the first part was the previous class before the Day of the Dead festival. I presented the vocabulary, and on the festival, in the end, I have these stages, Halloween festival, where they were checking the vocabulary again, and the last stage was to create a story in groups of 3 or 4. right? So, and in the end, the students had to act it out. And I have some rewards for the ones that that did it the best. Okay, so this is one good way to present storytelling to students, because they create their own story, they are motivated, and they are interested, because at least for students in the public schools in Mexico here is very interesting, very innovative, because they don't truly celebrate Halloween here, most of them. And now we have another example.
Well, the second example, it's mine, and well, the school's context is in a private school in Mexico. The average size is 12 and 15 students, so it's a quite small classroom, and I work this with groups of 4, so I need 5 classes, and the students' age are between 5 to 6 years old. They are quite beginners. So we first of all, we must remember that for beginners, the storytelling is not about understanding every word. It's about using language to communicate meaning, emotions, and ideas. And well, these stories create a natural communicative context, right? So I implement these tool through several steps. The first one is a pre-story stage where I activate and prepare my own students. I only introduce the topic and some key vocabularies in pictures and gestures or real objects. For example, in this case, we work with this story called The Three Little Rabbits, that it's like adapting a story from the original Three Little Pigs, but with rabbits. That's the only difference, but the story is most the same. So the aim in this pre-story stage is to active prior knowledge and motivate curiosity, not test comprehension. So I ask my students, what animals do you see? Where do you think they live? And so on. So they get interest in the story. Now, during the story, I tell the story quite slowly using simple language and repetition, and I try to use this expressive voice or gestures, and I encourage my own students to try to do the same. That means that we listen the same story 2 or 3 times with different voices. First, the teacher's voice, and then of 2 or 3 students that want to participate. No, so I try to include interactional moments about what color is the house, what do you see, how are the rabbits, and so on. So my students can try to describe the characters or the scenario, right? So then we pass to the post story stage, where we try to do retelling with visuals. Students put story cards in order to describe what happens, and they build their own like mini book using only pictures. If you can see on one picture, there is a little pink rabbit, and that is the main character. And actually, it was a small book that my students built to try to retell every stage on the story. So we try to do the personal connection, like which house do you prefer, so on, with some questions that help the students to retell the story, but also to try to communicate, right? And well, we do a creative task where students build the scenario. Well, first of all, they in groups try to change the end of the story, and then they build their own scenario, and they act it out, or do we a role play when students include their own final. So they have a story, a main story, which is the same, but they change the end of that story, and there is where they explore to use new vocabulary, and where they use these creative tools to try to express why their end is better than the original story, or well, and that way they share different perspectives with their peers.
Thank you very much. Well, now, how we can assess and check some evidence about this? Well, here the main purpose of these kind of activities is not focus on how they well do it, but they do it, especially in our context, which is primary school. So here is creativity, how they can let their imagination grow and flow. Also, it's very important that we let them be. It's going to be a little bit time consuming, however, it's a powerful tool. And probably the only thing that we can try to check is that how we check what they're doing. Yeah, probably only focus that well, try to avoid pointing mistakes. Yeah, and helping them to check on their fluency and how they can improve. And finally, the potential challenges and solutions that we are going to face while implementing storytelling in this context. Well, the normally large classes, at least for me, is very difficult because when you have 30 students in a classroom, even if you arrange groups of 3 or 4, then at the time when they have to present, it's gonna take a lot of time for 6, 7 groups to present. But we can try to give them the time. We can divide the groups and rotate the performances. Normally, for example, in my classmates' case that they are in private institutions, well, they have a good range of materials, right? A projector, speaker, everything. Well, in my case, we have limited materials, so normally I have to use visuals, drawings. I tend to draw a lot on the board. The students' shyness, this is very common that 1, 2, 3 students don't want to talk in front of the class. So maybe you can arrange the classroom in a different way, or if it's not good enough to arrange the chairs and how the class is presented, well, we start with choral speaking or pair retelling, that they work in small groups talking to each other, because normally students feel more comfortable talking to each other. And finally, time constraints. Well, integration study cycles, so 2 or 3 lessons. This is like the most common thing, and especially where you are only limited to 2 or 3 sessions for a week, is gonna take a lot of your time. However, it's very important to do this kind of activities because you let the students to create something unique for them. Okay, well, this is our conclusion. Storytelling in action demonstrate the stories are not just for listening; they are powerful tools to make English alive, interactive, and communicative for young learners. Well, thank you very much for your time. That is the reference, and here we finish. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much for this presentation. It was nice to see how this presentation evolved, since you not only consider the theoretical part, but how you have implemented in your real teaching context. And especially something that is very relevant to mention is that storytelling, it's pedagogical strategy that can be used well in your context with young learners, but it can be also modified to work with, for instance, teenagers or adults. The only thing is that we need to consider the topics of the texts that students are going to read and or produce. And especially, I would like just to remind that storytelling, which is a teaching approach aligned, sorry, a teaching strategy aligned with the CLT approach, encourages students to focus on meaning For instance, in the settings that you work, they help to build the scenery, to act it out, and also it promotes cultural and emotional relevance. For instance, in the case of working with customs and traditions, the Day of the Dead and Halloween, for instance. And then it is also a meaningful pedagogical strategy that improves socio-emotional skills, which is very aligned with the affective filter hypothesis of Crashing. And as you mentioned, within a teaching context where students feel secure of their learning process, that they are not criticized, rather they are supported by focusing on how they can use purposefully language, they are going to be engaged with that language process. The question that I would like to pose both of you is what could be the institutional difficulties that could be present during the implementation and how those institutional difficulties can be surpassed?
Well, normally, the main problem here is that even the schools, at least in public schools, we are not motivated, promoted to have this type of classes. In fact, it's very difficult for me because it's very time consuming. However, if I manage to plan very well some activities, I can implement the storytelling. For instance, sometimes as I told, present the vocabulary in some activities at stages, and one or two classes I take the time that they create a story and then present in the next class. But it's very difficult because with limited time also comes that we don't have the time to present and to have all the information, and they create something. Sometimes it will take 5 classes, 3, 4, 5 classes to create a beautiful story. But if you are rushing them, they are going to feel uncomfortable and with a lot of pressure on their kids, so they get distracted very easily. So this is how can you manage this? By planning. You have to plan very well your classes. You have to present the vocabulary and the kind of structures of sentences that you want them to create in small stages. So when it is time for them to create this story, they already know how a story is, what is the vocabulary they need. So that will be
A solution you propose, and it's exactly something that you need to reflect. Nevertheless, when I'm referring to institutional difficulties, is for instance, in public schools, we need to work, unfortunately, I say, or fortunately, depends on the context, with the traditional consejos técnicos escolares. There, in that place, in that moment, we as teachers are supposed to exchange our teaching projects. For instance, storytelling could be considered a teaching project. However, not all the other teachers are willing to support our ideas. Therefore, one way that you can do to surpass that institutional difficulty is like, okay, professors, I'm not going to ask you to do all the activities. Just focus, for instance, if I'm going to ask my students to read aloud the text, you as primary teacher, you know that you also need to enhance students reading aloud. So why don't you help me to give just 10 minutes of your lessons by giving oral reading practice, obviously in their mother tongue. But this antecedent will allow me as an English professor to enhance students' reading skills because they have that background knowledge, first of all, of how they need to give pauses, intonation, rhythm, although it's in their mother tongue, but they have that previous background knowledge. And then that part will allow me as English teachers to use the same meta language, rhythm, intonation, pause when you are reading. So this is something very tricky for us language teachers in public schools. We need to convince with evidence the reluctant teachers to support indirectly or teaching projects. And I don't know, Ilse, if you have any other institutional problem that you have faced when trying to implement this approach and how have you solved it?
Thank you. Yes, I was thinking more in the one that you proposed, Doctor, about the some teacher resistance or lack of training for those, especially if they come from more traditional backgrounds. But I think one of the I don't know, good ideas of the NEM right now is that we can work in a collaborative planning, right? So we can encourage other teachers to share these story-based lesson plans or co-teaching in a storytelling session. So we can start simple, right? Begin with one story-based activity per week and gradually increase the complexity as the other teachers can gain some confidence. But sure, there are many other difficulties or that we face in a institutional level, and one of them is the curriculum constraints, right? Because in our case, those that work in private schools, well, we follow a rigid program that sometimes prioritize grammar or vocabulary list and test preparation. So maybe we don't have enough time for extra activities that like the storytelling. But I think that we can integrate the stories into the curriculum goals using this short story or mini tales to teach the same grammar or vocabulary objectives already required by the syllabus, right? Or even we can link the storytelling to assessment, have some students complete a short oral or reading task based on the story that is retelling, describing, imagining the ending. And well, this could make the story part of the evaluable process.
And this is exactly what I would like to make you conscious about. You, as language teacher, need also to propose how to adapt the curriculum. Why? Because we are not going to be like tied just to what the syllabus says and what the institution says. We, as teachers, need to propose a change. Obviously, yes, it's for benefit of our students, but this is also part of our professional development. If we don't dare to make those proposals, convince, obviously, most of the teachers, not all of them, but most of the teachers, we can make alliances with the ones who are convinced and then work towards that objective. And why not later we can convince the other teachers to, well, why don't I will try to do it? Something like convincing and then making into practice this special part of storytelling. Let me tell you that it's not exclusively for teaching English, but will also enhance mother tongue language awareness of our students. That's why the basic education, in this case primary or kindergarten, well, most of them with primary schools, we as teachers can propose that to make the curriculum adaptations. So I don't know if someone of the audience have a comment or a question to your classmate. All right. If not, I appreciate your participation and also your confidence to exchange your proposal. Thank you so much. Now we are going to give the voice for designing and explaining a pedagogical proposal based on eclecticism. And this is given by Maria Fernanda Bernal González, Jorge Eduardo Young Palmer, and Jennifer Montserrat Lopez Rodriguez. The three of them are also teachers of, of higher education, and they are currently studying the MEILE program. Welcome, students. The microphone is.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. So, well, first of all, I would like to say that we're really glad to be here today. I'm Jennifer, and along with Fernanda and Jorge, we plan to work on this project proposal, which is based on eclecticism. So, and the title of this is Connecting Language and Culture. So, what we're gonna be talking in our presentation, we're gonna start by providing the context, the specific school we decided to focus on, to focus our project and the rationale behind it. Why did we decide to apply eclecticism? What is eclecticism as such? The theory behind it. Why eclecticism in this context is beneficial for our students. Tourism project, the activities that we plan to implement, the project stages, the methods integrated. We're going to be talking about two of them specifically, which are a project-based learning and a communicative perspective. The challenges we might face when implementing this into our classrooms, and the conclusions. Context and rationale. Well, we decided to focus our proposal on in Escuela Experimental Mixta, which is a school that is officially recognized by the Secretaría de Educación Pública. It is located in Banderilla, and we're gonna be working on with a third semester group of students who are from 17 to 32 years old. They are students who take classes on Saturdays. So many of these students, like some background about them, many of these students are working adults who are studying on weekends for different reasons, because they have been rejected by other schools, because they have failed, or because they could not continue their studies because they had to work. So we can say that these students have diverse goals. They have different motivations and obviously proficiency levels. We have all this in a single classroom. So we can say that a single methodology could not be enough in this case. That's why we thought on applying an eclectic approach into our classrooms. So why applying an eclectic approach? Can we go with the next one, please? Thank you. So eclecticism is grounded on the idea that there's no single teaching method that works for every student, for all the students that we have in our classroom. Instead, we're combining elements from different approaches, all this to create flexible and meaningful learning experiences. So we need to have in mind that no single method fits all learners' needs. So, okay, can we continue with the next one, please? Thank you. Why eclecticism? Why specifically eclecticism in this context? We need to have in mind that it's not a random selection of approaches, but in this case, we're focusing on two specific approaches. So because it is adaptable to a heterogeneous classroom, which is our situation, as I mentioned previously, we have students with different ages, interests. Some of them want to apply this knowledge and these skills that they learn in a classroom into real life situations or challenges. They encourage meaningful communication and real-life tasks. That's the purpose. Balances grammar, communication, and collaboration. And eclecticism supports students with different learning styles and resources that, as I mentioned previously, they are going to be implementing into real-life situations. In a moment, we're going to listen to my colleague Jorge, who's going to talk about the project as such.
We can't listen to you, Jorge.
Probably your micro.
Yeah, okay. Well, continuing with the presentation, I would like to speak about the tourism project that we would like to implement in the Escuela Experimental Mixta. Well, the students are going to create a digital tourism guide in English about Jalapa, which integrates the project-based learning and communicative approach. As Jennifer already said, some advantages, we would like to implement these approaches because, well, first of all, the project-based learning, it fosters the students' engagement. Obviously, when students are speaking about topics that they know and they are related to their environment, they are going to feel motivated. Also, the project-based learning, it fosters a real world problems and also well, this kind of approach, he is going to help a student to prepare to future challenges and is going to develop the critical thinking. This is really important. Also, while creating this project, the students are going to practice the effective communication. This approach is going to foster also confidence and motivation. And another goal that is important is the active participations. The students are going to describe and promote local attractions using English, and the final product is going to create and present a Canva and Google Slides. Well, I have set already the plan. So how are we going to do it? Well, first of all, in the phase 1, the students are going to use comparative and superlatives. Obviously, it is not that we have chosen this project because we thought that is just a good idea. We have been planning this carefully. One of the main topics of the semester is comparative and superlatives. In this way, the students are going to think about certain examples with previous knowledge that they already have. For example, Pedro is taller than Rodolfo, or in this way, my classmates would be, well, Jennifer is taller than Maffer. So they are going to start practicing with their environment, and then they're going to start creating their own examples related to the project. For example, Jalapa is colder than Veracruz, the cathedral is more interesting than Plaza Americas. So in this way, they're going to use comparatives, but they are relating this subject with the project. During the phase 2, that is related to using present perfect to promote tourism. As you can tell, another important topic here in this phase and related to the curriculum of the third semester of these students is the present perfect. So we thought that a good idea to promote this topic and to promote Jalapa using this topic is the students are going to start using the present perfect in questions related to it. For example, have you been to Jalapa? Have you tried a chile seco? Have you tried a pizza with yogurt? So these kind of questions that are related to our environment that the young learners think that is a good idea to speak about because it's fun. We think, and we for sure we are really sure that when we relate the topics with the real life and the contextual learning, they're going to be really interested and motivated to it. So during the phase 3, they're going to start creating the digital guide. Well, over here we can face a lot of challenges because, well, in the school we have computers with internet connection, but the students, they only go on Saturdays. So we don't have a lot of time, but they have, some of them, they have possibility to continue working at home. Well, in this phase, obviously, we find a lot of challenges, but also we think that it is not impossible to implement it. So I think that I have already done in this school projects that are similar, and I think that they find a way and they do their best. And during the phase 4, they're going to present their project, fostering and enhancing skills like critical thinking, self-reflections, and obviously they're going to practice their oral skills.
Okay, so in our proposal, eclecticism is not used randomly. It is principled. So we intentionally combine techniques from different methods depending on the goal of each stage of the project. From communicative language teaching, we draw group discussions and also we provide or we try to foster real life context and interactions, and taking into account this project is developed in Jalapa, the city where they live. So also from project-based learning, we included guide research, collaborative digital production, in the creation of a tangible product that they can share with the rest of the students. Next one, please. Okay. So even though this eclectic approach is effective and flexible, we anticipated some major challenges. The first one is limited tech access. As we know, many of the students do not own a computer or Wi-Fi. So the solution that we anticipate, is the use of school computers for group work. The second challenge is diverse proficiency levels. That I think it's one of the common one. It's very common. So in order to help students, we decided to work in pairs or peer work, and of course using scaffolded tasks in order they can achieve each goal in each stage. And well, low motivation, it's a common one too. So that's the reason why we decided to use relevant community-based content, as my classmates already mentioned. By creating this project in the city where they live, I think that would be engaging for them. Next one, please. Okay, so to conclude, eclecticism provides flexibility, inclusion, and authenticity, encourages teachers to adapt methods to real context, and also motivates students by trying to help them and provide them with the tools, digital tools, the peer assessments, etc., and will promote meaningful communications and sustainable learning. They, even though it's a group project, they may check their own pace, their own learning, etc. And of course, we are aware that can be replicated in other public high school settings with some adjustments according to the students' needs of each high school. And I think that's all of it. I don't know if you have any questions or comments.
Well done. Thank you so much for this orderly presentation and straightforward to the point. Before I make my comments, I would like any one of your classmates to give a comment, please. We need to hear you. Yes, go ahead, Luis.
Thank you. So, sorry, I was thinking about the proposal, and I think it's quite accurate. Sometimes lessons are really time consuming. So I think what Jorge mentioned about like those topics are not going to be taken just randomly. They have to be well structured and constructed is actually accurate. Because especially in public schools, sometimes content is not well known even though students might have checked that topic previously, they can forget about it because we only have limited time as well. So I think that teaching can be quite demanding. So having the chance to be open to new techniques and not really get to one. I mean, because I mean, what the proposal was that we can include different points of view. It's actually great because sometimes one technique might not fit our students' needs, but we can implement different ones. And I think in the end, it's more as we are going to benefit our students rather than even us, right? So.
Thank you.
Well done, Luisas. Yes, exactly. The idea of talking about eclecticism is like being conscious that no one approach fits all students nor fits a syllabus. Therefore, we need to start thinking beyond our nose, sorry. What does that mean? That before just sitting down and start planning, we need to be aware of the setting conditions. Obviously, our students' language level, but additionally, what do we have at our disposal? For instance, the conditions of the classroom, the size of that space, and as well what teaching materials we have and which other teaching materials we need to, well, we need to afford to some extent, we need to buy them or to ask our students if they are able to bring with them. Additionally, if we have a textbook, to what extent should I use it as the core material or as a supplementary material? And with all those ideas, then we start thinking on which teaching strategies that belongs to which teaching approach can we use to develop our lesson. And then our subsequent lessons. In this case, we are thinking not only in just lesson one and lesson two. We are thinking more on a sequence. And based on that sequence is how you are proposing the use of this eclectic approach. So, as a final comment, what could be your outcomes, your learning outcomes after writing this essay and obviously the proposal of eclecticism? What could be your learning outcome? In this case, you feel keen on using this eclectic approach? To what extent yes, to what extent not? Or if you have previously used, but probably without knowing the name that was eclecticism?
Well, for sure, I would like to use it. I would like to answer this question because, well, this is the school where I work. Well, for sure, I would like to use it. Well, I have already used it without knowing the name, that is for sure. But after writing this piece of work, which was really interesting, um, I am going to adapt the previous work that I have done because obviously I didn't know all the theory behind the eclecticism, but now that I know it, I can do a better job, and my performance as a teacher, it would be so much better after investigating and researching about it. I think that basically the students are going to be really motivated and working on something that is their context more than just solving a book or something like that. You know, that would be fun. And I think that new generations are into technology. So that's the reason we thought that it was a really good project to work about.
All right, Jorge, I appreciate your comments since this is also the purpose of writing down about this. You as a teacher are growing professionally. Yes, remember, obviously all of the efforts are towards students' learning process, but we don't need to forget about us as teachers. And this is another aspect of your professional growth. And really welcome these comments. Thank you so much, Jorge. And I don't know if Mafer or Jennifer wants to add something else.
Yes, well, before this this class, I didn't know what was eclecticism, of course, and I even felt bad when I tried to adapt my classes because I used to think that the correct way of learning was like trying to follow only one method, and then when you face the challenges or your student needs, it's very different because you realize that you need to help them and to provide tools that help them to improve to learn. So while developing this paper, was very interesting to notice that even though I didn't know the name of this approach, I I realized also that I wasn't doing it wrong. And so I consider eclecticism is very useful, and it's essential in most of my classes, but as long as it is taken as principle, not just using it in a random way. Okay, I think I'm going to use TLT because half of my class would help them, or I don't know, maybe this day I could use base task learning. No. I consider you need to analyze your environment, your class, your students' needs, and then based on that, you can choose or select in which way would be best suitable for them to learn. So I
Excellent.
think that's it.
This is exactly what it's called an informed decision. Precisely, that's the objective of having done this presentation. Thanks so much, Fer. All right. If there are no other comments or questions, I would like to this presentation, and we will give time for the next talk. In the next talk, we are going to listen to Daniela Fernanda Decidilia Wizard, Esteban Fabián Pérez Lobato, and Paola Fernanda Rivera Sanavia. They are going to talk about a project-based learning approach for EFL teaching, a proposal.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Our colleagues and I are very honored to be presenting this proposal in this forum. So the topic that, or what we are going to propose, is integrating project-based learning approach in an EFL elementary course. Okay. So here's how we divided our information, and I'm going to start with an introduction. Thank you very much. Okay, so we noticed that some first-term students that are enrolled or have just enrolled in the English language and English didactics BA do struggle with learning grammatical rules or patterns and also prepositions, mainly because they're in this transition process of getting used to English or language learning strategies, because most of them, this is the first time that they're facing this type of learning. And in some cases, they don't perform very well during standardized exams or tests, and sadly, they drop out. That is one liability we noticed. But also there is this very common situation, and it is a well-known fact that many students who come to study to the language faculty um, eh, aren't necessarily locals. They come from many different cities, and even some of them come from many different states. So when they start living here, and most of them, this is the first time that they're living alone, so or by themselves, so they don't have much information about city services or anything that could be useful for them that is close at least to the faculty. So we, with this proposal, and my classmates will go more in depth later on, but what we decided was to you take these two liabilities that are real problems and to put them together to eventually create this proposal. And we think or we believe that project-based learning in an EFL course for first-year students will help them to eventually comprehend syllabus topics that are presented to them, but also to provide useful information about the campus and the context, because this is, I guess you could say, contextualized with something that they are actually facing in real life. So if we can go to the next one, please. Thank you very much. So I'm going to present the theoretical framework, which, why is this a methodology that is learner-centered? Well, basically with this approach, what you want to do is shift the attention and the decisions from the teacher to pass them on to the student, right? So they can become active analyzers of the information. Why did we decide to use this methodology for this proposal? Well, because they are giving, students are given the opportunity to develop critical thinking, problem solving mastery, and also collaborative work skills. And we think this is important to be presented in the first semester, because this will be useful for the rest of the stay during the BA. So next, what is a project-based approach? Well, it is famously known for to prompt students to develop a project that is developed or carry out throughout long periods of time, so not necessarily 1 or 2 days, but like long periods of time, that are related to real world issues or real world situations, and especially that they have to appeal to the students' interests, because again, this is a learner-centered methodology. So some of the characteristics that we have, as I mentioned, is that it has to be connected with real world situations. And that's why we chose this liability, that is both students who come from outside the state or the city don't necessarily know the city services that can be available here or near the faculty. And next is that we have that scaffolding, which basically us as teachers or facilitators have to guide students onto the right answers without actually explicitly giving it to them. And then we have multifaceted assessment, which is basically quite similar to formative assessment. You are going to evaluate your students as they are doing the project and not necessarily right at the end. So you can have like a register of the process, how they started, how were they doing in the middle, and how are they doing in the end. And then, well, students have full control over the project. That is the design, what information they want to add, the structure, and so on. Some of the advantages that we can find with this approach is that students acquire lifelong skills. So, for example, critical thinking will be useful for them throughout the BA, but also for many areas outside the classroom. So, for example, when they encounter, let's say, like a job, this will be helpful, and but also many areas of their life. Then they can develop creativity since, as I mentioned, they have control over the design and what information they're going to add into the project. They can develop creativity, and also they develop collaboration skills but also independent skills. So collaboration, many students might struggle with working in teams, so this will help them to be encountered with people who have different ideas than them and to be able to reach an agreement between these two ideas. Next, well, independence as well, because they are able to discriminate between information that will be useful for the project and whatnot. And last is quite goes hand in hand with independent skills, which is self-management. They themselves can manage themselves to be able to determine in which areas they're lacking in, but also in which areas they are doing best, and to be able to also correct where they are doing necessarily great. And last, we have the challenges. So the main challenge, I would say it is the time management, but also the curriculum adaptation. These two could represent a constraint because, as I mentioned, this project is supposed to be carried out through long periods of time. And, with standardized exams, sometimes we don't have that much time, but also curriculum adaptation because it is a bit distant to traditional teaching in a way, so it might represent a constraint. And also that students might not feel very comfortable or familiar with active learning since they're not very used to being autonomous, for example, and since they're first entering the VA. And I think those could be the main challenges, but they can be adapted into working, I believe.
Okay, well, let's continue with the methodology. In this phase, well, we have to describe the school context, and it's thought that a proposal will be implemented in the public university where BA in English and English didactics is taught. There are approximately 6 groups. The proposal, we thought that we could implement it in 2 of the groups. There I and Danny and I, and we are making this social retribution in those groups. And well, we have 10 hours of elementary English of instruction per week. The student ages varies from 17 to 23 years old. There are many students, as Paula has described, who come from a different city of the campus university. And most of the students have previous English classes, so they want to become English teachers or even translators. The current level is A1, well, they want to be A2. And well, I'm going to describe the procedure for implementing the pedagogical proposal. In this case, it's a frequently asked questions guide for first semesters BA students, in this case, the English and English didactics. We took JSON's framework for project base from 2021, and we adapted, and it's not exactly the same. As a first step, we need well preparation and analysis. we need needs and contextual analysis of the group. This is by diagnostic test or even text also, and also a survey in order to know what is the level of the students about the contents that we are going to apply in this project. And we also need to identify if the students really know about the campus facilities and services also. And well, in base of this analysis, we have to compare these results with the project objectives. And if, for example, if students have some knowledge about the campus services, well, we have to adapt in order to make it more meaningful for them. The second step is the integration of the core elements of the project-based learning approach into proposals. And so we adapted these characteristics, that it's real-world connections, core to learning, structured collaboration, student-driven, and multifaceted assessment. So this is like a first draft of the project. And then in the phase number 3, we change to make a planning the project. So here, what we intended to do is that we make the project summary more defined about the different stages. We define the number of integrants of each groups, the calendar of the due dates in the different phases of the project, the presentation formats. In this case, is just only a suggestions, and we have to do also the assessment criteria in the different stages. Then number 4, it's introducing the project. The teacher, well, in this case, we are going to show some example of other universities, some guides, for example, for international students or national guides. Also, we have a question and answer session in which we verified that the students have understood all the project's objectives. And we start with it could be a question, like kind of driving questions. We say, for example, how do first semester students create a practical, user-friendly, and English frequently asked questions guide to effectively oriented new students to key places? And this has to be inside the campus and outside the campus. They have to relate this to their own experience as a first semester students, and to write in this guide what they think that would be useful information for new students. So in the number 5 phase, we have to, for example, make the students working on the project in classes. They have to create the groups. They have to assign the role of each participant. That this is very important, because here's where we are going to apply the structured collaboration of the project learning. And it has to be established the due dates of each stage of the project. A student also have to select the places that they want to include in the guide, and the teacher will give 3 categories, that it's campus services, gastronomy, and leisure. And this is the part of the we connect to real world experiences, and also let the students to decide about what they want to investigate. That's the student driven. And next one, we have to they have to make some research about the background, and they have to collect information inside and outside the campus. We have some special classes to do this process. In this is very important because the teacher has to support in every phase. Also, the students have to self-assess the performance, and this was divided in 3 phases. The first one is elaborate questions and answers. The second is giving directions, and finally extra information. So the professor has to reinforce the different topics, such descriptions of routines in present simple, use of preposition to locate places, giving directions, university vocabulary, asking and giving information, etc. And also reinforce these language competencies that they have to know about the syllabus. And this is the core learning about the project learning. Next, we have the presentation, when the student present the final guide in a public exposition, and we want to, some of these products were added to the students' university social media accounts. And finally, we got the assessment and reflection that has to be multifaceted assessment when the students have different stages and different assessments. And the end, of course, the teacher gives a final grade uh, and make group reflections about the positive things and negative things. That's very important, not only for the students, but also for the teacher, because we can improve the phases of the project or add some elements that it's necessary according to the teacher's interests and necessities. Well, next, Danny, it's going to continue with the next part.
Sure. Okay, good morning, everybody. First of all, so in this part, I will present the pedagogical proposal, potential challenges that we might possible strategies for implementing PBL or project-based learning, right? According to recent studies. So among the benefits, researchers found that PBL can enhance language skills, improve productive skills, which makes the learning process more dynamic and especially more meaningful. On the other hand, well, in the next part, we have some challenges that include low initial motivation, time constraints, teachers' limited experience with PBL design or assessment. Of course, that's why we need training, as I think Fabian said. Measuring soft skills like collaboration can also be difficult too. So to overcome these challenges, the strategies suggested include using AI tools to support engagement and project management, providing teacher training and clear assessment rubrics, promoting international collaboration. As Fabian said, I think we could use one of the guides that people have for international students or students who come here by exchange. And of course, offering scaffolding and continuous support throughout the project, right? So could we go to the next slide, please? Thank you so much. So, well, in this slide, we are referring to findings from previous research that obviously we had to look up in order to do this project, this proposal. And this illustrate how PBL impacts student participation. So first of all, we have, the first part. So according to Maulina, I think that's how it is pronounced, PBL improves student involvement, motivation, and language competency. The observation checklist in that study showed a steady increase in participation. So first, 50% of the students took part in the first cycle, 70% in the second, and 85% in the third. So I think that this demonstrates how a continuous exposure to PBL and to project work can gradually boost engagement in students, right? Now, we also have Astawa and other authors, I think that's how it is pronounced too. They found that PBL enhances students' confidence in using English through teamwork and mutual support. And one of the students from their study said that, well, as follows, right? There's a quote there that goes, "I feel more confidence when I present work in the front of the classroom because we are able to help each other in a group." So this talks about collaboration and the willingness of students and the motivation of students that work in PBL to participate, right? So these findings, sorry, highlight that collaboration and peer support play a key role in increasing both confidence and participation levels too, as we said, right? Can we go to the next slide, please? Okay, so well, to conclude, this proposal shows that project-based learning can support first year, or first semester EFL students in understanding the syllabus contents, and well, they will also develop essential communicative and collaborative skills, as we said. Through authentic tasks, such as designing an FAQ guide about the university, students not only practice English in meaningful contexts, but also build confidence, creativity, and autonomy. So PBL is, well, a valuable approach for promoting meaningful language use because it connects the classroom activities with students' real-life experiences. And while in our own teaching context, we believe that this approach can be effectively implemented with proper scaffolding and guidance, right? Well, I think that would be all. I don't know if my colleagues have anything else to say about this. Those are the references, of course. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much for listening to us, and for paying attention to this presentation.
Thank you so much for this presentation. What I really like was the way you organize the content to the first comment. Secondly, what I would like to recap is how project-based learning activates not only language skills, but real-life situations that can be also part of the content of a syllabus and how students can be enhanced to reflect on language use not as the primary goal, but how to employ language to discuss, to get an agreement, and of course, to shape a product, in this case, the frequent asked question guide to effectively orient new students to key places. And the advantage of this product is that you take into consideration students' previous daily life experiences and then how they can also be part of the syllabus. In this case, for enhancing new year students to explore, to go beyond their campus, and as well, probably quite ironically, how to survive and not to die in the first try, you see? Additionally, something that I consider the bad side of project based is time management, as you mentioned. Obviously, curriculum adaptation, since you know, in the current context of the BA, we are heavily bound to present tests. So, in this case, achievement tests, and of course that some students may not really familiar with active learning approaches such as project-based. So as you mentioned, one of the stages before you implement that is like giving students like a talk or a series of talks in which they are going to start being aware that the challenge for them is to organize time, to be conscious of what are their strengths and weaknesses regarding language production, and then how they are going to start, mm, probably, I can say, tracing their own learning paths in which you as the teacher will support, give formative feedback, and also how other teams, teammates can give also feedback. That's why you also mentioned multifaceted assessment. Project-based approach also promotes a multifaceted assessment way. And the last part that I consider really relevant is how you can use also AI tools to manage the project, but as well to assist in students giving formative feedback. This is another good advantage of project-based approach. You can take advantage of AI tools. So in a final reflective comment, I would like to listen. How did you get to the point of designing this project? What was your inspiration? Personal experience, something that you consider is viable and interesting for first year students, or how was the origin of that idea of the project?
Well, I think that we have some comments in the team group here, and we are making we are giving some classes in the elementary course, some hours there, and we have the experience with when we were students, and we notice that sometimes, for example, students don't know about. Well, they can find different places inside the campus in order to facilitate the learning. For example, they go to the library or in this case, el Centro de Documentación, they find very material that is very useful for classes, and even in the Centro de Autoacceso, ellos tienen ahí también material. They can find their material which they can find, they can clarify doubts, and also they have a different life because we saw that sometimes they go to the class and they haven't had breakfast, for example, haven't eaten nothing at all, and it's very difficult for them because most of them are living alone. And I think it's very useful that they can find a guide, or we talk within the team that the students give advices to other students. So I think it's the main point of that. And in that process, they can apply the syllabus content about giving directions and giving recommendations and use the university vocabulary, etc. I think what's what we have that conclusion with Danny and with Paola.
I consider it's very relevant. And then probably the other challenge is to convince language professors to adapt their plans, the original ideas they have, like review from unit 1 to 3. And then within these 3 weeks, we are going to cover all these pages of the textbook. And then how we can convince language teachers that by implementing this project, they can also cover the contents, and there is no need to go systematically from page 7 to page 10 for the first week. So they can also enhance students' likeness for using purposefully the language, and then obviously to some moments devote the attention to the grammar and vocabulary sections, as you mentioned. But this is not the main purpose of learning English, or well, in this case, language. The main purpose is for using in a real life scenario as the one you proposed. I don't know if someone else of the audience want to make a comment or give advice. All right, if not, I really think this presentation, it was really insightful as well. Thank you so much, the three of you. And now we are going to listen Luis Enrique León García, María Luisa Reyes Saldaña, and Raúl Adrián Martínez Galindo with their talk, Designing and Explaining a Pedagogical Proposal Based on Task-Based Teaching Approach. So welcome to this scenario, and we listen to
Okay, so good morning, everyone. Today we are going to present our pedagogical proposal based on task-based language teaching approach, or TBLT. And well, we are Luisa, Luis, and Raul. Can you move to the next slide, please?
¿No te aparece? Sorry.
Yeah, no, can you move to the next one?
I already moved it to the next one, so
The introduction.
yeah.
Okay, well, don't worry.
Or
Okay,
if you
so,
want, you can share the screen.
okay. No, it's okay. I can do it. Okay, so, well, we are going to talk about the task-based language teaching, or the TBLT, which is an approach that puts meaningful communication at the center of the learning process. So instead of memorizing grammar rules, the students use English to complete a real-life task that have a clear purpose. And well, here we have a citation by Ellis, who explains that language is best learned through using it for communication, not just studying it. And well, in our proposal, we apply this idea to help A2 students from the BA in English program to improve their speaking skills, especially for the final oral exam. And the goal of this proposal is to help them become more confident and fluent by using English in authentic and enjoyable classroom interactions.
Just one observation before you continue. I'm not really sure, but I'm just being able just to see the first slide.
Yes, I can share it.
What you can do is to convert it to PDF. I think it's a better idea.
Don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. I'm
I
about to
think it's
present.
my internet connection, sorry.
Yes, don't worry. You can take advantage of any solution. Remember, you are professional teachers, so you know how to solve it. No problem.
Of course. Here it is. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I don't know, Raul, if you want to quick recap the first introductory slide.
Yeah, well,
So the audience isn't lost, you know.
yeah, thank you, Luis. So as I mentioned, well, the TBLT is an approach that puts a meaningful communication at the center of the learning process. And here we have a citation by Ellis who explains that language is best learned through using it for communication, not just studying it. And well, in our proposal, we want to apply this idea to help A2 students from the BA in English program to improve their speaking skills, especially for their final oral exam.
Sorry, my microphone. Next slide. Let's approach some theoretical foundations about task-based language teaching. To begin with, Ellis, 2003. Learning occurs when you through accomplishing meaningful tasks where the primary focus is on the outcome and not the language itself. This means you have to use language in order to produce uh, anything. It could be an essay, presentation, a video script, any dialogue, in maybe even role plays if you want to. Um, that's what it's mean. It's because it's meaning focused communication. You are speaking or listening or reading or writing to communicate something, to foster an idea, to convey meaning, not just for the sake of speaking, which in a way you produce something for the sake of you to use the language, which is something very curious I found out. Anyway, the next uh, element feature of task-based language teaching is that we are the classroom dynamic shifts from a teacher-led instruction with a lot of teacher talking time, TTT, to a student-led interaction with much more student talking time, promoting autonomy and engagement and achieving a student-centered learning environment, according to Harasco et al. 2025 and many others, of course. And another feature is from Moldova 2025, which is the use of authentic language. Tasks simulate real-world contexts as I said before, like role plays or any problem solving task, any project they could do, any essay, whatever you want, making learning um, meaningful, relevant, and with a purpose, transferable as well. And finally, we have that it fosters a supportive learning environment because the approach encourages that risk of that linguistic risk taking and like reduces students' fear of making mistakes, which is crucial for developing fluency. Next slide.
Yeah, well, so the TBLT, as Willis and Willis explained, it has a cycle which is divided into three stages: the pre-task, the task, and the post-task. During the pre-task, the students or the learners explore key vocabulary and ideas. Then we have the task in which the students to commu communicate to achieve a real outcome. And finally, we have the post task in which the learners reflect and receive feedback. And well, uh, as I remember, on Wednesday, there was a meeting with Professor Edgar Garcia Ponce, who talk about task-based learning. Uh, and he mentions that this sequence allows a balance between fluency, accuracy, and reflection, creating authentic and meaningful language learning experiences. And well, he also has an article, a work in which he mentioned these three stages, similar to Willis and Willis. So this is our base to create our plan for our proposal. Can you move to the next one, please? Okay, so now then we have our context, our teaching context in which we are going to apply this proposal. We are working within a Mexican university, a public university, especially at the School of Languages at the Universidad Veracruzana. And well, our focus group is made of freshman students from the BA in the English program. They are beginners and A2 level, and they are between 18 and 20 years old and have 10 hours of English per week divided into 2 hours per day. So context about the institution provides teachers with academic freedom, which means that classes may vary in teaching style and methodology, even though the content is similar. And well, they also have a textbook, which is Speak Out A2 second edition. And in these courses, there are two lexical grammatical exams and a final exam that integrates the four skills. So, however, one of the main challenges observed is a lack of authentic input and confidence when speaking, which is why our proposal focuses on integrating the TBLT to increase exposure and communicative practice. Can you move to the next one, please?
Thank you, Raul, and thank you, Luis. So we're going to move on with our proposal, and we have several steps. So the first thing I would like to talk about is that we have to be patient. I think the TBLT talk that we had on Wednesday was really insightful, and we have to understand that all these changes and benefits that TBLT enhances, they have to be taken little by little. So the first step to actually put into practice would be to introduce the approach to professors so they can comment, right, on the challenges and the difficulties they are already facing, and taking into account that, all right, we can implement the TBLT. So it's something interesting because everything should start with really simple tasks so we can later master the TVLT, because this approach also requires to get to know the circle, like Raul mentioned, and also to be capable of, getting the actual outcome or achieve success. A goal, basically, right? Depending on what we are focusing. Right now, we are trying to just take into account speaking or oral communication, because again, it's really hard to change your whole planning and your whole teaching style from one day to another. So instead of trying to make professors to switch from one approach to another one, we're just going to try to get them to know that this is a new, right, well, not new, but it's something that they can enhance and use in their classroom to foster oral communication. So that will be the first step. The second one is to let teachers implement TVLT only on Fridays. So this has to do with the fact that they already have, for sure, a whole plan for the semester. So instead of changing everything, we'll give them the whole week, from Monday to Thursday, to finish their lesson planning, their lesson plan, sorry. And then on Friday, they can only focus on TVLT. And then for the whole week, they will have enough time, again, to get to know the approach and also design the material that is going to be needed on Friday. And at the same time, for students, it's going to be easier to adapt themselves to the new technique or new approach that is going to be implemented in the classrooms. And once again, it's necessary to understand that it's really hard to change everything all at once. We have to go little by little to overcome the possible challenges that teachers and also us might face. That's the second step. The third one will be to also get to know what is happening in the classroom. So we might need to do some class observations and get to, through interviews, to get to lay out the benefits and also downsides, that professors and students are actually getting to face, right? They are struggling with things. So that's basically our whole plan. 3 simple, but it might be useful steps to actually get to know TVLT in the School of Languages. So can you continue with the next one, please? So here we have an example of one of the tasks that we thought that could be useful. So first of all, again, we have to understand that all the expectations or the outcomes that we might want to have, they have to be based on the level of proficiency that the students are already working with, which will be an A2. So we talk about the topic, talking about travel and holidays. So for instance, the pre-task will be to give the students some vocabulary about what is needed when you travel, okay? Also possible or potential holiday destinations that they would like to go. So they can start discussing about something that they like, all right, and something that they might want to do in the future. And then we can also include a clip so they can notice how you can express your thoughts about, your holiday destination through a video. So they could get to know the prompts and also useful phrases and words that they might face on the following task. So moving on with the task cycle, we get, again, students new prompts so they can have a full discussion about their best holiday or the best holiday that they have ever had. And they can get to practice simple past. They can give the language an actual use. They can talk about something that they like. And then they will have a whole debate about what's the best, holiday according to as a class, for sure. So they will have to provide some reasons. They will have to get some really insights about why they decide to go with only that holiday, and basically it's that. So through this to this section, right, we want students to get to see that not everything is it's related to grammar. Sure, we're practicing simple past, but also that when you talk about something, it doesn't have to be with a really specific pattern. Sometimes you can get to use informal vocabulary. So I think this is sometimes what we miss as even professors or teachers, that we want to achieve perfection, right? So, but it's necessary to make mistakes or to have errors along the way. So we get the chance to just let students try. We give them a prompts, and then they discover what might be useful. And then on the post task, we now as teachers we have to provide them feedback, and as we know that there are really large groups, given feedback as a whole right in front of the class, and you don't really emphasize on one your students' performance. You just say, well, I noticed that while you were talking about the topic, you didn't pronounce certain verbs correctly. Remember, we have different pronunciations regarding simple past. And then you can also say, well, remember that this is some words that you might be using is just in informal settings. You have to keep in mind that when you talk about your boss or something else or someone else, you have to have a whole structured conversation. So once again, it's about the challenges that the students are facing while actually carrying out the activity. So can you move to the next one?
Okay. Well, now we have to talk about the why. Uh, Turns out, well, not really turns out, but integrating TBLT addresses key limitations of a purely textbook-driven approach, because it creates more dynamic and effective learning environments, because it boosts communicative competences among students. Uh, it moves them beyond any like pre-scripted dialogues to more spontaneous and authentic communication. Um, it also develops critical fluency and interactive skills. Uh, Students' engagement also increases, and their autonomy as well, because student-centered tasks lead to a higher motivation and the ownership of learning. They are active participants of their own learning process. It also fosters collaboration in many, for example, cooperative tasks, for example, debates or expositions, maybe that they are made on with teams. It fosters collaboration and critical thinking because of the problem-solving factor that is critical in these kind of tasks, activities, exercises. It also bridges the gap between theory and practice because it prepares students like for the real world language use instead of the inside the classroom use, or just the textbook. Every it's like bringing the real world into the classroom, as put in simpler words. So it complements the textbooks by providing a framework, applying real world vocabulary and real world grammar rather than replacing what it was already done, because the systematic way, the grammar is still there. You're just not going to be very uh, strict with how you use grammar. You're just going to make it as well as it is appropriate in a real world situation, depending on formality, depending on the context and everything. Now, another why is about how students reacted to this approach in other situations. Um, a study by Putri and Nasapari 2025 showed this increase in speaking scores in a TBLT intervention, their speaking test, and their score, well, increased from around 50% to a 74%, which is a pretty solid increase. Then we have Carrasco 2025, Carrasco et al. 2025. Uh, they had this increase in fluency, interaction, and confidence. You can see their base score in green, which was just slightly lower, 40%, around 40%, and it increased all the way to 50%, almost reaching 60%. Of course, there is room left for improvement, but it's a very interesting statistic, as well as the overall the participants of other TBLT activities of other research projects. The 90 over 90% of the participants reported that the TBLT activities were enjoyable. They were more engaged. They were more como pez en el agua. That's why I put a fish icon back in another slide. It provided useful vocabulary for real world situations. That's pretty much it for my end. Next slide.
All right, thank you, Luis. I think Luis really lay out everything that we can say about TBLT and the benefits that we can get. So once again, we can use the language, in this case English, not only for academic purposes, and we recognize that it's common to make mistakes and have errors while speaking. And also we can enrich our students' input. Again, the one that I mentioned was just an example, but we can even include authentic materials. We can talk about like how actually, I don't know, living abroad. Maybe when you travel abroad and you have to check in and check out work, so you can use phrases that are going to be actually important if you want to travel. Then we can acknowledge also the importance of context and culture. Again, the use of pragmatics while speaking. We know to recognize that some words and phrases are not appropriate in certain settings. We can also get to know that the students that when they speak, for sure, it's common to have some make them sounds and how to even use your body to make a certain communication right. So throughout the TBLT, the main purpose is to boost our students' confidence. It means that we're going to equip our students to have enough tools so they are going to face later challenges on. For instance, their final test, because they have for sure a speaking test. So maybe while having at least 2 hours, per week, yes, of practice of speaking, they're going to get the chance to, once they get to the actual test, they are going to know what phrases they can use to introduce themselves, how they can make actual communication, right? So maybe they can use their body, they can even know what's the appropriate volume so they can have an accurate use of language. And for sure, this goes just beyond like a test, also just for them to practice, because sometimes, and it happens to everybody, as you have large groups, you really don't have the time to pay attention to all your students. And also sometimes you have to make decisions regarding the content that you're supposed to check, such as, for instance, professors in this class, they have content, they have a book, and what we are trying to say is that they don't really need to forget about the book, but they can include topics that are being checked throughout the course, but with a different purpose, just to give them enough practice so they can get used to use a language besides just reading or listening. So I think it would be something meaningful for the course. However, we can also face some implications while using TBLT. For instance, there could be some resistance from teachers to put it into practice. Again, we're trying to say that we are not trying to forget about their own teaching style. Maybe just once a week they can include it, but I know it's hard because everybody has a different way of working. So that might be one challenge. The other one is that there is a lack of training, as we don't have for sure a proper like lecture about TBLT. We might face some things, but overall I think we can get to know it through practice. And also sometimes the students they decide not to attend on Fridays because it's the last day of the week, but I guess if they recognize the importance of the class, they might get interest. And again, it's for them just to get to know that there are different teaching styles, and it's something meaningful because they often struggle. They mentioned that they don't know how to pronounce certain words or how to actually use the language outside the classroom. Maybe this could help, and also promote in our community to teachers and students to talk in English outside the classroom, even for simple conversations as well. But for sure, we understand that there could be some apathy, right, from the alumni, and those are challenges and explications that we can face. Fortunately for us, I think most teachers, they have the tools, they have a laptop, they have a projector to bring into practice a lot of things, so classes can change and be more dynamic. But again, I mean, there are certain implications that we have to take into account. So once again, this is just a proposal, right, to help our students with their oral communication skills. And I think that will be pretty much it. I don't know if my classmates wants to mention something. I don't know.
No, it's okay. I don't know if anyone has any questions about it.
Or probably some comments from your classmates. Well, if not, congratulations for this insightful presentation. It was really well organized. And I will try to make like a general summary of what was presented. You are claiming that TBL is meaning focused. It's a meaning focused approach in which communication and authentic language use is emphasized. So something that I consider was very necessary, and I think that you have included this in the presentation, was that we need to be aware if teachers know the know-how about TBL, not only the theoretical parts, but the know-how. And then that's why you propose to introduce this approach to professors, then to give the chance of implementing per day. I was wondering why on Friday, but you already mentioned the reason. And later to interview teachers in the sense of if they were willing to introduce it, no? Or something like if how they were able to manage their preconceived ideas, and then how they were trying to adapt those preconceived ideas. Additionally, something that I consider was very insightful, the way you presented the proposal, the pedagogical proposal, and it was something very common to discuss about holidays. It's very common in the sense that, well, we assume that this case, young students have spent time on holidays, probably with the relatives, with friends, or anyone else. But you are considering those experiences as the teaching material. What I mean by teaching material is not like a textbook or a handout. So you're taking daily life experiences and then you convert into your teaching resource for then adapting the lesson, the stages, and then promote, in this case, the debate, or also the conversation about how was their holidays, or in this case, what are the challenges that they will face for deciding whether to go on vacation or if they want to go for a, I don't know, probably an eco-friendly place, and what are the advantages, disadvantages, and all those aspects. And something that I consider it was especially meaningful from this presentation, the outcomes of implementing TBL. First, that you mentioned, boost communicative competence, and especially speaking scores can be upgraded. Secondly, that it bridges gap between theory and practice, and this also is align with the multiple criteria. For instance, how do you know if your students are not only able to produce correct sentences, but also if they are aware of some pragmatic aspects? Then it also was mentioned that TBL increases students' engagement and autonomy, especially with activities that can be considered enjoyable and memorable. And in few words, we can say that this proposal is not only addressing students' language learning, but also like proposal for inviting professors to be willing to implement. And this is also something that you can do as a second stage. The first stage, as I mentioned, is this theoretical proposal, this theoretical document. And later, if you have the willingness, you can start like asking some professors if they feel willing to participate, and then exactly introducing them in this approach, giving some assistance on how they can implement, and later probably you can limit just to 1 or 2 units of the core syllabus, and then retrieving information of how teachers in this case feel about implementing this technique, and as well as a complementary study to inquire how students felt when the teacher implemented this approach. So these like they can be the outcomes of this theoretical proposal. I don't know if someone else want to add something. I think that Rene has his hand. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
thank you very much. No, just to say congratulations. And as you said, if I will have the chance, I will like to be part of this, but I mean as a student, because I remember when we had this speaking test, and when I was part of the BA, I wasn't really able to fully understand some of this, and I think this is a very good proposal. So I just wanted to say congratulations to my classmates, because I think it is very interesting but very applicable tool. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rene. I don't know if someone else wants to add something. I don't know, Professor Cliserio.
Well, in general, I'm very happy to see how people are growing here. This room is precisely for sharing what we have reflected on and what we have been doing, not only in the MEILE, but during your whole career. And I'm surprisingly, positively, and surprisingly amazed by how people are, well, getting ahead. They are becoming more and more professional, and they have developed several skills. Not only are we talking about language proficiency, but we can see critical thinking, depth of thought, proposals today, which, as Rene was suggesting, they are remarkable, and they can be applied. So they are taking theory into practice, which is amazing. And I just want to thank especially male students for participating in this forum. And we had the chance to thank everybody for sharing their knowledge, their data, their findings, and everything that merged in this forum during these 3 days. So perhaps we can go over some words for thanking everyone. and taking advantage of my introduction.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cliserio. Especially, I would like to thank the willingness of all of you, MEILE students, for giving the reflections, and of course, that you are growing professionally. I also would like to thank some BA students who willingly accepted to be present here, listening to you from your expertise, and as well that have willingly accepted to be part of the audience of this forum. I think that these 3 days were of importance not only for you as students, but also you as professionals of language, because these spaces gives you the opportunity to exchange views, to increase your knowledge, but as well to have that confidence of sharing what you have probably implemented, be willing to implement, and as well some ideas that can lead you in your professional developments. So I think that this was the purpose of this forum. I don't know, Professor Cliserio, if you want to add something else, or simultaneously we are going to give the thing.
No, not really. I also want to thank the people who joined for just listening. I can see there Mariel Martinez, who was actively participating, perhaps not with questions, but she was connected all the time. That's what I could see. We have Stefania Rodriguez, Diana Aguilar, Abril Ayala, who is a MEILE graduated professional, amazing student, Abril Ayala. And well, everybody who joined on Wednesday, on Thursday, today, creo que ha sido maravilloso para todos ellos, sobre todo, como dijo Esteban, para estudiantes de licenciatura ha sido muy, muy bueno. Y bueno, su participación as MEILE students is just remarkable. No more words, but to keep on thinking and to keep on working and to keep on growing.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cliserio. And especially, I would like if you have the opportunity to turn on the camera just to take the final picture, please.
Maximiliano también por ahí que está participando. Diana Aguilar, bueno, se fue.
Thank you so much. And so now we are going to take the picture, say cheers. All right. Y ahora sí, en representación del maestro Raimundo Arcos, director de la Facultad de Idiomas, siendo las 12 horas con 30 minutos del día 24 de octubre de 2025, declaramos clausuradas las jornadas del cuarto Foro Internacional Estudiantil de Enseñanza, Aprendizaje del Inglés.
Bravo, bravo, bravo. Muchas gracias, doctor Esteban.
Gracias a todos ustedes.
Excelentes participaciones.